everyone.
Hey, that's my bit.
I know, I was just gonna I wanted, it's good to change things up sometimes.
No.
This is not gonna go well.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Lay It Out, the No Bullshit Science podcast.
With extra bullshit.
I'm Curie.
I'm Alice.
And she's Silent Demelza. Yay!
Woohoo!
First of all, I just want to extend all of our apologies. We've been really shit at uploading episodes, and there was quite a big gap between the last few.
Yeah, soz.
So sorry about that. Life got in the way. We got a bit busy. But we're back on it again. We've got a good schedule of guests coming up.
Hope you're excited. And I also want to apologise in case I sound like a 15-year-old boy whose voice is breaking. I have a cold.
Yes. It's okay. It's that time of year.
It is.
Yeah. Anyway. I'm a bit phlegmy. I think we need to stop eating sweet stuff.
That's only you.
No,
that is only you.
No, it's a thing.
It's not. It's really not.
Do sweet things make you phlegmy? Silent Demelza.
No.
No. Does it make you phlegmy?
No. It's just you. I'd say it's dairy.
Oh. Okay. Wait, if you're lactose intolerant, can it cause you to become phlegmy?
Yeah.
Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
Also, I haven't made this up.
No.
God damn it. Okay. Well...
So stop blaming dessert. It's not dessert's fault. What did dessert ever do to you?
It's dairy.
Well, non-dairy desserts.
Maybe we should... That's what... Okay, next...
No, we are not going dairy-free. Excuse you.
No, just as an experiment.
How dare you insult my sensibilities.
We're scientists.
Okay, fine.
Okay. Right, anyway, how are you?
I'm good, apart from my... I'm good. How are you?
Listen, we're both a bit on one today. This episode might be a bit of a mess. I'm a solid 8 out of 10 moody, and I have been all day. And I don't know what's happened to Alice. She was fine this morning, and then I left her at 2 to come to a different office, and suddenly she's come back a mess.
It's just... I don't know. It's dark. It's raining. It's depressing. I'm in my last day of my second year.
It's okay.
It's traumatizing.
It'll all be fine.
It's all getting on top of me. Anyway, moving on. Curie, you're going on your holidays next week. This week!
Yeah, on Wednesday.
In fact, when this episode comes out, you might be back.
I probably will. No, I will be back. This will come out next Wednesday.
Will it? Is it me that's editing this one now?
I'll edit, don't worry.
Oh, really?
Do you want to edit?
Not particularly.
Wow, okay. Listen, we need to rely...
Sorry, I keep being casually insulting to our guest and forgetting where she's from and where she lives.
We need to keep our guests happy so that they'll come back.
True.
So we don't have enough people.
That's true. We're running out of friends.
We are running out of friends.
Listeners, if you have any friends that aren't murderers or psychopaths and would like to come on and talk about science,
it's true, because after this episode, we are moving away from friends and into acquaintances.
So we're taking a leap. And the next leap will be into complete strangers.
That's okay.
Yep.
There's some interesting strangers. A man in New York has made a whole career out of talking to strangers.
That humans in New York?
Yeah.
Yeah. I like him. He's good.
He is good.
Now he gets to go to cool places.
Sometimes he writes really sad ones and it makes me really sad.
My favourite are the one-liners that are quite funny.
Yeah.
I'd be like an old lady saying something about her sex life or something like that.
Oh my god, have you seen that clip that's going viral, right? Of the old Christian lady on Naked Attraction?
No.
Oh my god, okay, it's amazing. Everyone that's listening, I'm sure it's on YouTube. Just put Naked Attraction Christian lady. Or maybe it won't be on YouTube because of all the naked bits. But anyway, it's this Christian lady, obviously. She's come on and she's come to find her new lease of life.
Uh-huh.
And she's literally there talking about how she wants a big dick and all this. And it's insane. It's so good.
You go, girl. How old are you thinking?
40s, 50s.
That's not that old.
60s.
Curie, there's a big difference between 40 and 60.
Okay, she's old.
You've either greatly insulted or greatly complimented.
She's old enough that when she starts talking about wanting a big dick, that you're like, oh, all right.
Oh.
Yeah.
I have the hiccups. So you're going on your holidays. Tell us where you're going on your holidays.
I'm going to Milan and Lake Como. So any Italian fans that see me in Milan, hit me up.
Because we are global.
We are.
Yes. So, swiftly moving on. Demelza's on fire with their signs.
Yeah, we're still
They
not
hang
used to
off the
them.
top of the laptop. We still are not smooth when we see the signs. We get really excited and we pause.
Because
so apologies
do you
for all the pauses.
And do you know what it is? It's because so Demelza has refused to accept her role of actually being the producer of the show, and now she's very producery because she's wearing headphones again, and she's got her signs.
And she's all fancy.
But she was meant to get us a red light though.
We're still waiting on the red light.
Yeah. Anyway.
Should we introduce our guest?
Yeah. So we've got another repeat guest this week because we have officially, as we mentioned, run out of friends. Well, Alice and Demelza ran out of friends a long time ago, and family. And I've now run out of friends as well. So we've gone back to repeating guests, and we're bringing back Sophie.
Woo!
Hi guys.
Hello.
Welcome.
Thank you.
So the first time you were on, did we record in Demelza's house?
No, we were here.
We were here.
I was
Yeah.
on the other side of the table. I remember looking that way.
Really?
Ah.
Yeah.
So how does it feel on the other side of the table?
Really, really different. Really interesting.
Do you now feel like this episode is all about you?
Very much so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you also feel like you might be in a little bit of a job interview?
Like we're the panel.
Maybe, but I also feel like I can't go wrong. So,
You can't.
Well,
Yeah.
you could.
I mean,
Unless you start
I
talking-
just listened to your intros.
Indeed.
That's fair.
Oh God. Oh dear.
I mean, before we started recording, Alice forgot how to even read the time, so...
But can we just be honest? Nobody uses an actual clock with hands anymore.
You know, I think I was
It's
actually...
not. I'm a child of my generation.
Yeah, no, I was going to say something, I saw something that was saying I think a lot of children now actually don't know how to read analog clocks. Because they're not really being taught how to use them properly.
I never use them, do I suppose?
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's kind of sad. Because also, digital clocks are kind of ugly compared to... You know, you get like really artsy analog clocks.
Yeah. I never knew that they were called analog clocks.
Until just now.
Yeah.
Oh, that's what they're called.
You learn something new every day. Fascinating.
Sophie, so do you want to tell us a little bit about what you do? I think, actually, because were you still doing the same thing last time you were on?
So yeah, I'm still doing the same job, but I was really new to it when I spoke to you last year, so I didn't really know what I was doing, and whereas I'm now more than a year into it, so I have a bit more of an idea of what I'm doing.
You're in the swing.
Kind of in the swing,
Yeah.
yeah.
Nice.
So I'm a quality manager for a translation company. I was hired into the life sciences department, so I do a lot of medical forms and clinical trials and all that kind of thing in Italian to English specifically.
So do you find that you've picked up a lot of science knowledge through doing this?
I think knowledge is a little bit strong. I think words.
My scientific vocabulary is on point.
Yeah.
But I don't know what any of it means.
Pretty much. I sort of have a lot of sciencey friends and they say words. I'm like, I know what those words are. I must know what I'm talking about. And I'm like, no, I've got absolutely no idea what's being said.
Yeah.
But yeah, I sort of enjoy. I can sort of half have a conversation and then I have to leave because I can't do any thought.
I'm the same.
Cool. Good.
Me too.
Do you want to give... so you're fluent in Italian, right?
Depending on the situation.
Do you want to give a little shout out to our many Italian listeners?
Ciao a tutti gli italiani.
Hello to all the Italians.
Yeah.
I'm fucking fluent.
All right.
I'll have my degree.
Good luck in Italy.
Anyway,
I was going to ask, okay, so the company you work for, is it a company? Or is it like the government?
this company you work for, this company?
It is a company. It's a
Yeah.
global company, but we
Okay.
do a lot of a lot of government documents, but
Okay.
also most people I work for are the clinical
Yeah.
trial research people.
Okay, cool.
And
That's
research.
really interesting. And is it just European languages or is it all different languages?
It's all different languages, but you have to have a degree in the target language. You have to be a native speaker of the. So you have to be a native speaker of the target language and have a degree in the source language.
Okay.
So that you're fluent in the language you're ending up in.
I get
But
you.
you have to really know the one you started from.
Yeah.
Basically.
Interesting. That's really interesting because I'm doing a review at the moment, and I had to write up a protocol. And one of the things that came up while I was writing the protocol, so it's just basically how I'm going to do the review, was about foreign language trials, and that we had to, because in science there's this big gap that they talk about all the time between like Chinese research mainly, I think, and
Why are you looking at me?
but I mean I feel like
I'm not Chinese.
you're Asian.
I'm racist. We're not all the same, you know.
Have you heard this before though?
Yeah.
I think it's specifically Chinese, because I came across so much Korean research. Like it was all like, in this university in Korea, like I feel like Korea might be quite good at translating its research into English.
Probably.
Anyway, hardly any Chinese research.
Yeah.
And apparently, and Russian is the other one. So Chinese and Russian, that they might be going ahead in the fields and like making discoveries that we won't know about because we don't translate our research into their languages and they don't translate their research into our language.
It's interesting that it's the two biggest countries.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's probably because, like, I mean, what we do is, like, it's the pharmaceutical research companies that, like, need to have all of their clinical trials and all their hospitals, like, translated for their head offices. So it's probably just that, like, China and Russia have their own places, don't need the rest of it, and so we just don't really get involved. But I know that they have departments from those places, but I don't know about, like, what department, like, because I work in life sciences just in Italy. I do a little bit of Spanish, a little bit of French. But, like, it's such a huge company that you have to, like, you're so specific in what you do. But I know that they have, like, all sorts of things.
Yeah. It's just interesting. It's a fact that I came across.
Speaking of languages, this is what we're talking about today.
How
So
exciting.
that was a nice segue into the actual science.
It was.
Um,
Can I pause for a sec?
Yeah.
Did I sound really racist in that last bit?
No, you didn't.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
You can tell I'm joking.
Okay, good. Great.
Racist.
I'm just gonna sit here and eat my cake.
Right, so when we asked Sophie to come on, I asked her, we always ask our guests, is there any topics that they're interested, that they want to talk about? And usually they're pretty vague. They'll say things like, oh, gaming, or, oh, music, or...
Misophonia.
Yeah, misophonia. That one's a little bit more specific. But Sophie went even more specific, and she said she'd like to talk about language development in the brain. And I said, great, you've made my job easy, I can do that. It's also made my job a little bit difficult because I know nothing about that. But I did find a paper that I thought was quite interesting. And also, I found it interesting because it relates a lot in the because there's two bilingual people in this room, me and Sophie. Do you count as bilingual?
Probably not.
Okay.
I might have been almost at one point,
Okay.
but not anymore.
So there's two bilingual people in this room, me and Sophie, but we will have become bilingual in different ways, which is kind of what this paper is looking at.
Interesting.
So it's called "The Timing of Language Learning Shapes Brain Structures Associated with Articulation." So there are two types of bilingualness, bilingual.
How many languages do you speak?
There's two ways of being bilingual, basically. So it's called simultaneous and sequential bilingual. If you're a simultaneous bilingual, that means you were learning both languages from birth. So that's what I would have done. And then there's sequential bilingual, which means that you would have learnt your second language after the age of 5. I don't know if these are official terms of this or if these were made up by
This paper.
but either way, I mean, it makes sense, right? You're either going to learn your second language later in life or you're going to learn it when you were born. So yeah, so for me, I would have learnt Korean and English at the same time as I was born. And with you would have learnt English as your main language, and then you would have learnt Italian later on.
21 when I started learning.
Which is very late.
It's very late. I did Spanish and French at school,
Yeah.
but Italian at 21.
Yeah. So the sort of the main thing this paper is looking at beyond language is how does the brain develop with skills that were acquired from birth compared to skills that were acquired later in life. And we kind of know, so this plastic, the brain is plastic, right? This is a thing that's come up. It's fairly new in the whole scheme of neuroscience, but the brain is plastic. There's a lot of plasticity, which means that the brain can be molded and shaped according to what's going on with your environment, things you learn, blah, 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 blah. And this experience-dependent plasticity and sort of the effect of learning has been seen a lot in the adult brain and is fairly well studied. But in terms of this question about development and different stages of learning, we're not quite clear, especially with different things like language. So what these guys did is they got a bunch of people. They ran a human trial and they ran an imaging trial. And the main technique that they used in this trial is MRI imaging, which is magnetic resonance imaging. Do you know anything about how MRI works?
Can I ask a related question instead of answering your question?
Yes.
What's fMRI?
Functional magnetic resonance.
What's the difference?
So functional fMRI will look at like if you're doing something and then what parts of your brain are activated.
Okay.
And then you have like structural MRI, which is looking at
It's like
structures.
That literally just pictures of the brain.
Yeah.
All right.
Is that right? Okay, cool. Okay, so do you have any idea how MRI works?
Yeah, I think.
Okay.
I don't know.
Go for it.
Well, I had an MRI scan once.
Yeah.
So I literally got inside a tube.
Yeah.
And some noises happened.
Yeah.
And I got a picture of my brain.
Yeah.
And they looked at it.
Okay.
A
lot more happened.
Can you ask me
than
that question?
Yeah. How does an MRI work, Alice?
Okay, I think I know how it works.
Okay.
So, you're in a tube,
Yeah.
like Sophie was.
Yeah.
And then the noises are a giant magnet
Yeah.
that is spinning
Yeah.
at high speed around your head
Okay.
and body.
Yeah.
And the magnet is on one side, and opposite it is like a detector. And the whole thing is spinning,
Yeah.
and that's the noises.
Really elbowed me in the face.
Like spinning motion.
Yeah.
And then the magnet, things are getting fired from the magnet
Kind of.
to the detector.
Oh, I think, yeah.
And then they
Yeah.
go through you,
Yeah.
and stuff gets absorbed.
Okay.
And then the detector picks up, and that's how
Okay.
it makes a picture.
Kind of. You were kind of there.
I know, I could tell I was losing you.
You were
Your
really...
tone of voice was like, yeah.
So you started really strong.
Thanks.
And then it went all wrong. So the way that MRI imaging works, it's actually a really cool technology. So
I learned about this in college, so that's not very good. Anyway.
No, but imaging is very complicated, and
It is.
I don't know it in detail. It's actually very physicsy.
Is it something to do with like, because, no, do you know what? Never mind, carry on.
Oh!
What? Yes, Alice?
It's something to do with the water.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
I knew
So,
that.
there's lots of water in the human body, and water is made up of 2 atoms of hydrogen and 1 oxygen. So it's H2O, right? And in the center of hydrogen is a proton. Now, these protons are kind of like tiny magnets, and they're really sensitive to magnetic fields. So when you go into an MRI machine, basically what happens is the radio waves from the massive magnet that's going around you will sort of knock all your protons out of alignment because they're sensitive to these magnetic fields. And then when when that happens, your protons will realign back to normal. But depending on whether they're in water, fat, bone, muscle, all of that thing, they will realign.
Different tissues.
So yeah, different tissues. They'll realign at different speeds, and those different speeds give off different signals. Oh, okay.
Oh, good.
Those different
Good job.
speeds. Those different speeds give off different signals, and that's how we can differentiate between. And that's how it forms the image, because it'll say like this signal came from this part of your body and blah blah blah.
Sure.
So that's
the images look very clear.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's how MRI imaging works. So that's what these guys did in the brain of these bilingual people to see what was going on. And actually, I wanted to I had some cool facts from this paper, which was talking about language learning and stuff. So they were saying that for most infants, the ability to discriminate between phonemes, 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 not phenomes, phonemes. Yeah. I'm about to explain
What's a phoneme?
Yeah, I'm about to explain. Which are unique sounds.
Do you know what a phoneme is?
Sorry.
Never mind.
Unique sounds. Can you give an example of a phoneme?
No.
Like,
Why is that unique?
because there's 44 different sounds that you make for a language.
Right.
And one of them is
Okay.
Well, there's like
Why-
more than 44. Where did you get 44
I think it's 44
from?
in the English language.
Okay, I was going to say
Yeah.
there's like unlimited amounts
Yeah.
that you can make.
44 in the English or the Latin
The Latin.
Latin alphabet.
Interesting.
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
No.
I saw the number 44 somewhere. Forget I ever said 44.
Curie's just making up facts.
Yeah. So basically, you know, in the dictionary, is it 44? In the English language.
Yeah.
Okay. So you know.
So can I ask a question?
Can I just finish what I was going to say?
Okay.
So you know when you look up a word, the definition of a word, and it's got those weird little symbols to show you how to pronounce it.
Oh, yeah.
Each one of those is a phoneme.
Oh my god, that makes so much
That's
sense.
IPA. That's what that's called.
Okay. What does that stand for?
International Phonetic Alphabet.
There we
pretty
go.
Sure.
So those things are like the different phonemes.
Interesting.
Yeah.
More
Okay.
interestingly, it doesn't account for accent, so you have to find out, like, because obviously American and British people say those syllables differently.
Oh.
So IPA will usually be like.
So it's not very international then,
Well,
is it?
it is very international, but you just have to know what accent you're going for.
I see. Okay.
Is there like a table on the internet that has the amount of phonemes in each language?
Well, that's Jamal's. We'll find
That's why
out.
I'm looking at Jamel's.
What languages do you
I'm just wondering, is the amount of phonemes in the English language like high or low? Because I'm imagining it's quite low, but I just want to know.
Okay, whilst Jamal's looking at that, I'm going to tell you the rest of my facts.
Go on.
Because I didn't actually finish telling you why I was talking about phonemes. The ability to discriminate between the phonemes of different languages, you actually start to lose that by 6 months.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so from when you're super young, you start to lose that ability. But that development time, that 6 months, is actually way longer for infants that are learning 2 languages from birth. And then,
So are you born recognizing all phonemes?
Yeah.
well, I guess you're a blank slate, aren't you?
Okay.
So
Yeah.
every sound you're absorbing.
Ah, okay. So
Yeah.
makes sense.
It starts before you're born as well.
Yeah. Oh, from the belly.
Yeah.
So you should talk to your baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Does that
Oh.
mean you should talk to your baby in all the languages that you want your baby to learn?
Well, it probably would help, but babies will recognise. They did it on newborns, where newborn babies prefer to hear the language of their mother over another language because they'll have
Heard
they'll
it.
have heard the accent, they'll have heard the sounds.
Interesting. Yes.
Very interesting. My mum said that I used to recognise the music from Coronation Street when I was in her stomach. Every time she'd watch Coronation Street, I'd start kicking.
Really? That's
True
kind of
story.
cute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, the lowest that I found is 11.
Oh, what language is that?
Rotokas. It's a language from Papua New Guinea.
Okay.
And also one from somewhere in Brazil. And then the highest is 141.
Wow. Where?
Is it in an Asian language? Is
I
it
would've
No,
Turkish?
thought
I thought
Asian.
it was because it's called
Or
Ju-
African.
Ju, but it's spelled XU, but it's from Botswana.
Oh. We went to a restaurant called Shu recently.
We did, yeah.
It's very good. You should go.
We sound like we eat out all the time.
We do. Well, I eat out all the
You
time.
do eat out all the time.
This week's been a bit excessive, actually. I gave myself the shits on the weekend because I ate out so much. Anyway.
Just love hearing about Curie's bowel habits. It's the first thing I hear about on a Monday, usually. So fun.
Well, you shouldn't have chosen to go into that line of work if you didn't want me to talk to you about it. In fact, you shouldn't be my friend if you don't want to hear about my poos, basically.
Oh.
Anywho, okay, so that ability to recognise phonemes, fuck. A phenome is something, right? What's a phenome? I think it's a genetic thing.
Well, it's like the phenotype version of a genome.
Okay, yeah, okay. So the phoneme, that ability, you start to lose it at 6 months, but it's different if you're learning 2 languages from birth. But then your ability to learn things like grammar and sentence structure and stuff, and the ability to learn that really easily is obviously much slower. You lose that ability much slower, and that extends until puberty. So actually, by the time you're about 12, your ability to learn new syntax and grammar drops quite a lot. Yeah.
And is that just because you've learned it all? Or is it actually because you can't anymore?
I just don't think it's that you can't, but I just think the plasticity of your brain, first of all, is a lot less.
Okay.
So you've already formed all these connections for your certain language, so then to try and relearn a whole different thing is probably too much.
Mm-hmm.
But apparently I heard that until the age of 8 or something, I might have completely made up this fact, you have the ability to learn 15 languages or something. Can you Google?
Do you mean fluently?
Yeah.
Okay, because I've heard things like past around puberty, the chance of you ever having a native accent is almost nothing.
Yeah.
Because like I think it's not that you can't learn things anymore. It's like the part of your brain that is able to learn new things isn't being used, and so it just goes away, doesn't it? I think that's.
So hold on to that, because they do actually look at native accents.
Okay.
In this as well. Yeah.
Okay.
Right, so like I was saying, the goal of this study at the moment was to see whether bilinguals who are able to achieve fluency in a second language in later life have different patterns or different structures in their brain compared to people that learn it from birth, suggesting that if there is a difference, there's obviously a very sensitive period for you to learn language, and that which will really affect the development of your brain. So they got 16 participants who were simultaneous bilinguals, and everyone that they had could speak French and English, because this was done in Canada. And then they had 18 people who were sequential bilingual, so they started learning from onwards of 5 years old. Every single participant had to be someone that was exposed to and used French and English on a daily basis. They also excluded people that have any musical skill to a high level or had ever been taught music, because people who do music generally have different brain structure and are a lot better at languages and linguistics compared to people that don't do music.
That's fascinating.
They also excluded anyone who was multilingual, so spoke more than 2 languages.
Sorry, I feel it gathering.
That's all right. So what they would do is they would just get these guys to go. This was a really, really simple study for them. They would just get these guys to go through the MRI, take pictures of the brain, and then they'll compare them. They also compared them on. They would sort of get them to speak and have a look at how proficient they are in the language as a way of measuring sort of how fluent they are, and just to check everything. And they would also establish an accent score for everyone based on a 7-point scale of just 1 native accent, 7 not native accent at all, just so they had a scale of how good everyone's accent was. Which, if you went to a French person, they would probably say their accent was completely non-native, right? So Canadian French is quite different.
Yeah.
Great. Okay. So, on to the results. So, just sort of the first, they were kind of assessing the language of the both people before they started looking at the actual nitty-gritty of it. And both simultaneous and sequential people were both highly proficient in their language, which makes sense because 1 from birth, 2, the others were learning from a young age anyway. But the people that had the sequential accent, their first language was a much more native accent than the second language, whereas the simultaneous, they had much better accents in their second language compared to their first language.
That would have been expected. Well, I would have thought that.
Yeah. And then we're going to now talk about the actual brain structure. And this is when it gets there's lots of big words coming up. So,
already.
Yeah. Sophie's like, hit me.
Yeah.
So
I know them all.
there are actually quite a lot of differences between these two people, which is, I think it is quite surprising, because 5 years in the whole grand scheme of things doesn't seem like a lot.
Were they all about 5 though? Because it was just after 5, wasn't it?
Yeah, did they all start learning at 5?
Yeah.
We should have reported that, I think.
It might be in the supplementaries. Okay, so the average age of acquisition of the second language was 13.5, 13 and a half.
So,
interesting.
Yeah.
So puberty.
Yeah. So,
So their brain will be well into their native language before their sequential one.
yeah.
Okay, cool.
All right. So, there are quite a lot of differences between them. So the people who had the simultaneous people, first of all, they had much higher grey matter density in quite a few areas of the brain. Now, grey matter density, do you know the difference between grey matter and white matter in the brain?
I would love to say that I do, but I think the truth is I just know that there is a difference.
So, first of all, it's named grey matter and white matter literally because of what it looks like.
Okay.
So grey matter contains the actual cell bodies of nerves, and then a few of the axons, so the thing that the electric impulse shoots down. In the grey matter, nerve impulses are produced in the grey matter, and then they're sent to target organs by the white matter.
Okay. Yeah, fine.
So In the simultaneous language learners, their grey matter density was much higher in 5 brain regions. And the first one was called the left putamen, which preps and aids in limb movement.
Ah.
So interestingly, you'll find, as I'm going through this, you'll realise that a lot of these brain regions, they have a lot of function within movement and actual, more actual movement.
Wow.
I was trying to think of another way to say it.
So hang on. They had higher density of grey matter.
Yeah.
And grey matter is where the cell bodies are or where the axons are?
Where the cell bodies and a few axons are.
Okay.
Yeah. So the grey matter is where the nerve impulses are actually produced.
Okay.
Yeah. So I guess the part of that gets activated first. So they had high grey matter density in the left putamen, which preps and aids in limb movement. They also had it in the posterior insular cortex, and this part of your brain is responsible for pain, which is not relevant here, but also social engagement and a few other things to do with emotion and empathy. And it was also in an area called the mid-occipital gyrus, which is responsible for identifying parts of your face. So it's helping you be conscious of where your mouth is, where your nose is, where your eyes are. Okay. Also in the right dorsal prefrontal cortex, which does working memory and cognitive flexibility and planning. Now, the part of this that's interesting is the cognitive flexibility. So cognitive flexibility is basically the ability to switch between two different cognitive tasks or perform two tasks at the same time. So arguably, we women probably have a much bigger area of this than men do. But it would make sense that people who learn two languages at the same time, their cognitive flexibility is a lot better because they need to be able to juggle those two languages. And finally, the lateral occipital cortex, which is your visual. It's a small part of your visual cortex. So all of these things seem to be much bigger in the simultaneous learners. But the sequential learners did have one that was slightly bigger as well. So for them, they had more grey matter density in what's called the bilateral premotor cortex. And this part of your brain, it preps your muscles for an exact movement. So it helps you control your movement. Now, this is a really quick paper. There's not that much more left, except that, so then they looked at the accents, the accent quality, and they found that the more native-like your accent of your second language was, the higher your grey matter density was in the putamen, which is the part of the brain that preps and aids limb movement. So that area of the brain seems to be one of the most important areas for language development. And so it seems like how good your accent is as well, not just how early you learned it or how good you are at the language, the actual accent itself has also an effect on your brain structure.
And is it a case of the chicken or the egg?
In what way, sorry?
So for the people who are sequential learners, you know, the way you're saying that your accent has an impact on your brain structure, could it be that your brain structure is actually having an impact on your accent?
100%. That could definitely be it. So I guess to study that, though, we'd need to have studies where we're looking at people literally from birth all the way until the end.
I'd be interested to know as well, like, if they did take the musical ability into account, because, like, if you've got an ear for that kind of thing, like, how much faster can you pick up the accent, and, like, does that relate to your ability to learn the language, or...
And actually, I do think it does make sense, because if we look at, say, let's compare me and my brother. My sister went back to Korea when she was 18, so for her accent's pretty much perfect. If you compare me and my brother, my accent is a lot better than my brother's. My accent's not perfect if you put me in Korea, but it's pretty good to the point where a lot of Koreans might question whether I am, what's the word? Whether I was raised here or not. Yeah, they might question that. But I'm also a lot more musically advanced than my brother ever was. So maybe that has something to do with it. Or my brother's just a dumbass.
Either or.
Does your brother play any instruments?
He did play the piano growing up, but I'm the only one out of the 3 siblings that actually carried it on until I was a decent level. So
could you still play the piano now?
Yeah.
Interesting.
If my parents have poured thousands into me learning instruments, if I couldn't play it anymore, they'd be pissed.
What else can you play?
Violin. Yeah. I always find it quite cool when you think of like, if you do music, that you can read music.
Yeah, because it is kind of like another language
Yeah.
written down.
I was watching a lecture on YouTube because I get kind of bored when I work.
Such a nerd.
I know. And it was saying that they think that possibly the part of our brain that enables us to be so linguistically competent and sort of fluid is also a part of the brain that, like, as a sort of byproduct, we're actually able to do complex mathematics and music.
Yeah.
Because of things like, we don't sort of learn grammar, we don't like hear, we can make up sentences and structures that we've never heard before, and that's actually like such a complex thing for our brains to do.
Yeah.
That they think that, like, because of that sort of like abstract taking and then learning something and then applying it without ever having really been instructed in it, as a result of that, we can do things like maths and physics and music and all that kind of thing. So when they're sort of talking about taking the music out of the language thing, I thought that really makes sense, because I think actually it might be the same part of the brain that sort of does all of that, basically.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
And isn't it a thing that some of those big, great, fantastic composer people, weren't all of them really good at maths? Not all of them, some of them.
I don't know.
You know, like Mozart and stuff. Wasn't some of them mathematicians as well?
I don't know.
That's for you,
Demelza?
Demelza.
I love how you always look so alarmed when
But
we
I
ask you
guess
to
we-
fact check.
I guess like it's not your job or anything.
It's just, I don't even know how to look up.
Just Google, was Mozart a mathematician?
Yeah.
And see what comes up.
I guess also with when it comes to music as well, because so much of picking up language and learning language is like the phonemes.
Feelings.
How about,
Yeah.
Alice?
Alice, come back.
Bach.
Bach.
Which one?
Bach.
No.
Beethoven.
Beethoven.
Chopin.
I'll do that one that's shorter.
Keep going until you find one.
Their job was a composer.
Why don't you put composers who were also mathematicians?
That's actually, well done, Curie.
Anyway, I had a cool fact from this paper as well, another one. So you know the area of so we talked about this Putamen area. Is that how you say it?
It sounds like something from Pokemon.
It does.
Putamen.
Putamen. Putamen!
I choose you.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah, so this left Putamen that
Silent Demelza fact. Ding, ding, ding.
Putamen.
Oh.
Putamen. Okay, so this Putamen. I sound like I'm making fun of like a Caribbean man. Or an African man, sorry. Putamen. Okay, so this Putamen that we've already established is really important in language development. And actually that was already shown in other studies as well, not just this one. If you damage that part of the brain, that's associated with what's called foreign accent syndrome.
Oh.
Which is a disorder that's characterized by speech patterns that simulate the phonology of a non-native language.
Mm.
And then I was thinking, right, so what if someone's got this foreign accent syndrome and they just sound like they're really fucking racist, right? Because they're like talking in this weird accent and actually they've just got their brain damage.
Yeah, so that's when you get a head injury and then you start talking in a different accent.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah.
I feel like that happened on Grey's Anatomy. And it might have been a scenario like you're saying.
I feel
Like it was like a white woman and
It
she was
feels
talking like a Jamaican accent or something.
Oh, maybe.
I think.
I need to finish Grey's Anatomy.
Oh god, it's too much of a... It's Mount Everest of TV shows.
I think I got up to season
There's like
3.
26 seasons.
And then like every episode made me cry after a while, so I had to stop. It's really sad. It's so emotional. You know, have you seen the episode where there's like the man and the girl impaled together on a stick from like a train accident, and they have to pick which one dies?
I did see that one.
Oh god, it's so sad.
I saw that episode.
Demelza doesn't look impressed. Also, finally, another fact. Not finally, but just another fact. If you learn 2 languages from birth, it also seems to alter brain structures that support other linguistic skills, such as reading.
Oh.
So people who are bilingual from birth are better readers than
It's quite a statement.
Well, I mean,
Okay, yeah.
I'm sick of reading, do you know?
You would hope so. You're 27.
Listen, I had very advanced reading. My reading language was really good when I was young.
So's mine.
Because sometimes, like, when you get people who are learning 2 languages from birth,
Yeah.
they've shown that, like, really initially there is a lapse in their language productivity.
Progress.
Yeah.
But then, like, it just blossoms.
Makes it up.
So
Yeah.
I think it takes a bit longer to process all of it,
Yeah.
and then they can just go.
They
Yeah, because
speed
it's
up.
like, it's normal for bilingual kids not to be able to speak properly till they're like toddlers, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
just because I think they're having twice as many words and twice as many everything for their brain to process. But then when they do it, it just happens.
Yeah.
But also, like, the little tiny toddlers, their brains can still tell the difference between the 2 languages. Though there's never ever been an issue of a child not knowing which language is which.
Yeah. It's crazy, right?
Which is, that is actually mad. So,
Yeah.
like, how
Yeah.
do they know that?
Yeah.
Yeah, because our friend is raising her daughter speaking English and Portuguese. And she was saying that she is now 3 and she prefers, or not she prefers, but she'll now at this point will use the English words first because Anna was saying, where we were all kind of like, oh, probably because that's spoken to her more because she goes to childminders and is like with loads of other kids who obviously speak English. But then Anna was saying that she's starting to like verbally show that she knows the difference between Portuguese and English. So she'll be like, Anna will talk to her in Portuguese and she'll say something, she'll point to something and say the word and be like, Portuguese, and say the word in Portuguese, and then say in an English and say English, and like kind of thing.
Crazy.
And then she goes to Portugal, and because she's spoken, like all her family from Portugal will speak to her daughter in Portuguese, and then she says when she's there she'll start answering more in Portuguese.
That's crazy.
Yeah,
Because also similarly, I think like
it really is.
yeah, children who obviously don't really know what they're doing, like consciously, they'll never mix up syntax either. So they won't like sort of, because like, I mean, I imagine in Korean and similar, but like in Italian and Romantic languages, you have different sort of, if you literally translate something in Italian which would have the same meaning in English, they're different words and different structures.
Yeah.
And a kid who speaks both those languages would never mix up those 2 syntaxes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
it just doesn't happen, even though the meaning is the same.
Yeah.
And syntax is, am I right? That's the order of the words.
Syntax is, I think, basically just a posh word for grammar and structure and all of that, like the sort of mechanics of a language.
Okay.
And a kid won't mix up the 2 things at all.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know what I always found confusing? I don't know what defines your first language. Like, what actually defines your first language? Because for me, my first language, technically, is Korean. Because it's what my parents would have spoken to me.
Mm-hmm.
But my first language in terms of what I'm more comfortable speaking is English.
Yeah.
So when someone asks me what my first language is, what do I say?
But do people who are
I'm
simultaneously...
having an identity crisis.
Do people who are simultaneously bilingual have to have a first language? Like, would you not have 2 first languages?
Probably only if you have to write, because sometimes you have to write on a form, don't you, what your mother tongue is.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're applying for an English speaking degree, then maybe put English, just because otherwise they'll want you to prove that you can speak English. But otherwise, yeah, because if you're like simultaneously bilingual, then that's literally the point. You have both the whole way through.
Yeah. But you're going to be more comfortable with one language from the very beginning than the other. Like, there's going to be one language that's spoken to you more than the other. So most people, if they were raising their kid in an English-speaking country, will probably speak to their kid in their other language because they know that the kid's going to be encountering English a lot more.
Yeah.
So then that baby is obviously going to speak their mother's language first. It's just crazy, isn't it? It's just all sorts of crazy.
Does anybody have any lip balm?
Not on me.
Sorry.
On your desk?
In my coat, I'll give it to you in a bit.
Okay.
We are literally in the middle of recording, Alice.
It's an urgent need. This
Don't
weather is
touch
wreaking
it.
havoc.
Don't touch it. Actually, I've been getting dry lips too.
Yeah, it's the weather.
Have you been getting dry lips, Sophie?
No, but I work from home, so I don't go outside unless I have to.
It's a nice life.
That sounds nice. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so that's the paper.
Good
That's
paper,
it. Yeah.
It's quite a small study, isn't it? Because just to sort of
Yeah.
like have more comparisons. Because obviously it's just taken people who speak 2 languages, some from birth, some not from birth. It'd be interesting to sort of have just a control group who only speak English, because what's
that
the
would be
brain?
good.
Yeah, because there's definitely differences between people who are sequentially bilingual compared to people who are monolingual.
Yeah.
And it'd be interesting to see just how big the differences are between all these things.
Yeah. That would be interesting, because that would be like comparing the 3 of us.
Yeah. Although, because you still have a little bit of another language in you.
But doesn't everybody well, I don't know the school systems in every country, but we had to do, so I grew up speaking English, obviously, and then when we go to school, learning the Irish language is mandatory, unless you're dyslexic or have like a reason to not do it. So for all state exams, you have to do it. But like I think because of the way it's taught, very few people carry it on.
Yeah.
Like there's certain schools that put an emphasis on it, and you find them when you go to university and you are able to drop these subjects. People who went to those primary schools that placed an emphasis on it, so they would have taught other subjects through Irish rather than through English. They'll carry it on. So I have a few friends that would be still quite fluent, and then there's also regions of Ireland where it's spoken more. But at the same time, so then I'm like, those of us who didn't go to those schools, primary schools, that would have prioritised it, but just learnt it through. And now, like, my level will be terrible. So do I still count?
You've been exposed to another language though, and so in terms of like sort of what happens to your brain,
Yeah.
so it depends what level you ever got to, but like,
Yeah.
I mean, if you as a young kid were exposed to 2 languages, like people who are like purely monolingual would only have, for example, English and nothing else, and never heard anything else.
Okay.
And so like you're still familiar with
Yeah.
different sounds and
Yeah.
different like syntax.
I guess that's another thing to compare then, right? So how many years of learning another language does it take for things to actually start having an effect?
Yeah.
Or even
Like if they'd looked at, say, my brain when I was at my highest point of knowing that language, and my brain now when I hardly know it at all, what would be the difference?
Or like if you looked at, so for example, in my primary school, we started learning French from year 4. So a few years, halfway through primary school, we started learning French. Whereas a lot of schools will only start teaching French in secondary school. So then if you compare those sorts of kids, is there a difference there?
Yeah.
Like, do those few years difference in learning make a difference?
And I wonder how much you have to do it as well, though, because I mean, I remember I started French in year 7, and you had like 1 hour a week, and you'd spend the first term learning the colours. I mean, I wouldn't say that really is going to change your brain.
Yeah, that's just memory.
Like, exactly, you're learning just a couple of words. It's not actually sort of like really learning how to think in a completely different way. When you get to a high level of a language, you're literally thinking in a completely different manner.
Yeah.
So I wonder how far you have to go into the language learning before it to make a difference.
Yeah. Do you ever think in Italian?
I regularly, I'll consciously think things in English, and I'll think, how do I say that in Italian?
Yeah.
Just sort of just constant back and forth.
Yeah.
I've occasionally dreamed a little bit in Italian, and that makes me think that I do have Italian in
Yeah.
my brain somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not like masses, but it's just in.
No, that's big.
Yeah.
Yeah, I literally work. I don't speak it often because my job is like editing.
Yeah.
But I read it every day. I listen to it quite a lot.
Yeah.
So it is part of my daily life.
I feel like that is actually a sign of you being bilingual.
I'm definitely on a scale. I wouldn't say that I think I heard somewhere that to be like a native level speaker, you have to live in that country, surrounded by the language and the culture for at least 3 years.
Yeah.
And I only spent a year in Italy.
Yeah.
I sort of work with it a lot, but that's not enough to really sort of like be the real native level.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would say I'm highly competent.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah.
Language is so interesting.
Yeah.
Did you ever watch that movie? I think it's called The Arrival. It's got Amy Adams in it, and these aliens come, and she's like, but like they're just in this big pod thing lands on Earth, and they go into the pod, and then there's like a screen, looks like a big cinema, and the aliens are behind the screen, but they keep firing these weird splodges onto the screen, and that's their language. So then they go find Amy Adams, who's like a leading linguistics professor, and she has to go and like try to figure out what they're saying.
I don't like space movies.
I love them. This was one of the more realistic ones. I know the way I'm explaining it sounds ridiculous, but like in it feels a bit more like.
I also don't like Amy Adams. I think she's shit.
Who is she?
She's the one that looks
Red
like
hair.
Isla Fisher.
What?
She was.
She doesn't look that much
She was
like Isla
Lois
Fisher.
Lane in Spider-Man.
No, she wasn't.
Superman.
That's Kirsten Dunst.
I don't know.
No, in Superman.
Oh, I don't know.
Still don't know.
I'll Google her for you.
Clark Kent's Boo.
I know who the character is. I don't know the person.
You'll know her when you see her. She's
Okay.
shit. Sorry.
I don't think she's
Sorry,
shit.
Amy.
I'm pretty sure
I know
she's like been close to winning an Oscar.
Quite interesting.
I think her acting sucks.
I don't think it's bad.
What if she's a real avid listener and you didn't know? You just lost her.
Well,
I
sorry,
think you're being
Amy.
very harsh, Curie.
Sorry, Amy. You suck.
Yeah, how do you feel to you been in Curie?
You're so harsh.
okay.
She's literally Isla Fisher's twin.
No, she's not.
Yes, she is.
I don't
They
think
look
she is.
exactly the same.
I don't
I think
know
the
what
only
I've seen her
difference
in.
is like their eye color or something.
No, they do not look the exact same.
Yes, they do.
Okay, hang on.
You agree. Silent Demosa agrees with me.
On a side note, I really like the name Isla.
I think Isla is quite nice as well.
Oh, look, here's a picture of the two of them together.
Yeah, because they're-
Arguably, Amy Adams looks a bit older.
Oh, come on. They could be sisters.
Sisters, but not twins.
They don't look that alike.
They do.
Thank you, Sophie.
Okay.
Who's the one that looks like Zooey Deschanel?
Oh, it's the singer. It's the one who did Hey, I Just Met You.
Oh,
And
Carly
this
Rae
is
Jepsen.
crazy.
Is it?
I think so.
Anywho,
Did you know?
yeah.
Probably. But I like this fact. I think it's really interesting.
Okay.
That people who have like strokes that affect language regions of their brain,
Yeah.
like you can lose an entire language. So like I think if you can lose. I think my friend knows someone who had a stroke and he lost the part of his brain that
Your friend had a stroke.
my friend's relative had a stroke. Sorry, I
Okay.
don't know what I said.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
You said that so casually. I was like, is she
Oh
okay?
yeah, no, he was like odd.
Okay.
I mean, not that it's okay, but but yeah, he had a stroke and he was born in Italy, so spoke Italian was his mother tongue. Learned English, I think 20s. Lived in England after that, so decades and decades speaking English. And then after he had a stroke, he lost all of his English because the part of the brain that had learned where the second language had gone to was damaged, and he could only speak. His Italian was perfect, but couldn't speak English anymore.
That's
Oh
so
my
sad.
God.
Yeah, but I just thought it was really interesting, how but I think with people who learn two languages from birth, both those languages go through the same part of the brain,
Yeah.
as far as
Yeah.
I'm aware. But as soon as you learn a second language later, it goes to a different part.
Yeah.
I think that's quite interesting.
Or
I don't
it's
know what
something
the
to do with
languages
there's different connections, and
Yeah.
maybe those connections got damaged.
Yeah. That'd have to be such a specific injury, or a specific part, for
So
it to have an effect like that.
are. Yeah.
Or what about people? Okay, maybe I've watched too much medical dramas, and this might not be real. But what about the people that have a brain injury and suddenly they're speaking a completely different language, or the ones that wake up from a coma and can speak another language? Is that real?
I'm gonna Google that.
You
Okay.
can have a stroke
I don't know. It was on TV.
because there's different parts of the brain that do the production of language and the understanding of language, aren't there? And you can have
Yeah.
strokes that apparently it's really rare to have strokes that only take out one, but it does happen. So you get people who completely understand everything but can't produce any language, and you get people who can produce language but can't understand anything at all.
That's so weird.
Yeah. I can't remember what they're called, but they've done some studies on
Yeah.
this.
So do you look up shit on this quite a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I watch lectures on YouTube.
Such a
I
nerd.
know.
What are you looking up?
Nothing's really coming up.
What about learning a new language?
No language and traumatic brain injury.
All right. Shall we end it there?
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a really good discussion, actually.
I love when we talk about. I think I like it when we get specific in a thing like that where language.
Are you okay?
I can't use my language. Things like that kind of topic
Yeah.
where it's not too specific, but you can get a real good ooh, what about this? Ooh, have you heard about this way? Ooh, that movie with Amy Adams in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a great discussion.
Yeah,
I enjoyed that.
Cool. Did you enjoy the paper?
I did. Yeah, it was good.
Do you have any remaining burning questions?
Can you remember any of the brain regions that I talked about?
The Putamen.
I don't think anyone who listens to this episode is gonna forget.
Wait, where is that though? Can you draw me a picture?
Yeah,
in
where
the
is
slide?
it, Curie? Tell us.
Yeah.
It's in your head.
Wow.
It's a part of your brain.
Behind your face.
Oh, that one.
It's sort of near the front.
Okay.
It's kind of like where your temples are deep in your brain.
So the brain.
Yeah. It's where your temples are,
Yeah.
but like deep.
Deep what way?
Yeah.
Into your head.
So in the middle.
So behind your nose?
Not quite behind your nose, just to the... There's like two parts of it.
More to the medial line.
Right? So you're going through your temples,
Yeah.
and if you just imagine going straight through your head,
Yeah.
where your temples are,
Yeah.
maybe like sort of behind your eyes-ish,
Okay.
it's there.
But further back.
No, where your temples are.
Oh.
It's in the front part of your brain.
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, that's where your Putamen is.
Putamen.
Fascinating.
Okay.
Yeah, any burning questions?
I don't know if it's. I don't know. Yeah. Okay.
Hit me.
At the very beginning, you were saying something about like, what was it? The simultaneous bilinguals having a different. What did you say? Something to do with like emotional connection with the language. Is there anything more about that? Because I find that really interesting.
No.
Because like I'd also. Okay, never mind then.
Just no.
No, so I think what you're talking about is that there's a part in the simultaneous language people, one of the parts of their brain where the grey matter density is bigger also is involved in emotion and empathy.
Okay. I find that
But
interesting.
it probably doesn't actually use that function.
Well, because I'd heard as well though that like they'd done sort of studies or however they do this, where people who like they did it on diplomats, and when people have to use their second or third etc. language, they are less emotionally attached to the language and they're more likely to make rational, sort of more logical, colder decisions than people using their first language because they're much more emotionally connected to their first language.
Interesting.
So I was interested in the fact that bilinguals like probably have that sort of
Yeah.
different like emotional.
That's really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was like fascinating.
Okay, maybe there is something there.
I
then.
think there definitely is.
Yeah.
But I couldn't tell you what it is.
Yeah. Well, because when I read it, and it said like they have more empathy, blah blah blah. In my head, I was like, well, maybe that's because if you're bilingual, you have more ties to different cultures.
Yeah.
But I don't know.
Because I'd always sort of thought as well, like you just have to have a real deep understanding of a language to really be able to understand someone else when they use it.
Yeah.
But it seems like there's more than that. It's like you're using a second language, you don't have the same emotional ties that you would have done when you learnt the language as a child.
Yeah.
So you can just sort of use it really sort of detachedly almost.
Yeah.
That's what I think. But I don't know. I just thought it was interesting. So I was
Yeah.
wondering if there's any more about that.
Huh.
But,
I would definitely find it harder to say things like "I love you" in Korean compared to English.
oh, really?
Yeah.
What do you mean? In what way?
Like
You wouldn't feel like it was as serious?
Or it's just not something that I would say. Or like, yeah, I just wouldn't feel as comfortable saying "I love you" in Korean
Why is that?
compared to saying it in English.
Yeah,
Like-
I'm interested.
I don't know.
Do you think if someone gave you like one of these moral decisions,
Yeah.
do you think that you would have a different outcome if you were given it in English or in Korean? If you
Probably
said-
not.
Okay,
Yeah.
that would make sense because if you learn them both at the same time,
Yeah.
that's what the studies would suggest.
Yeah.
I was interested. To sort of,
Cool.
Yeah.
You are a great guest.
thank
There
you.
was lots of great discussion.
I enjoyed the
Yes,
paper.
it was
Yeah.
great.
I
Thank
feel
you for
you
coming back to us.
I feel you were more, like a lot more knowledgeable about this than some of our science guests would be about their own things.
I've watched a lot of lectures.
Cool. Well, would you come back?
Well, you've already
Because we're
said that.
desperate.
Well, you just said that you're only having acquaintances. So am I being like?
Not
down?
only.
Oh, okay.
I'm saying we're having to move on to acquaintances.
Well, okay. I'll come back, but I want to stay your friend, Curie.
You can still be my friend.
Thanks.
Cool. Right. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you for
I'm
having
glad
me.
you enjoyed the paper,
Yeah.
and thank you for all your very interesting facts.
Thank
and
you.
there was a lot. I think the discussion was really good today.
Yeah, I enjoyed
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
It was great.
Right, so if you're listening at home, please rate us 5 stars on whatever you're listening to. You can find us on Twitter and Instagram at Layout Podcast. You can also email us on layoutoutpodcast@gmail.com. Usually me and Alice do this alternate each thing.
Yeah,
but-
I was
but
waiting
Alice-
for my bit.
Alice was too busy on her phone, so I did it.
I was updating the Instagram.
Okay, fine. Sponsors.
Patch.
I like how we do this bit as if we have sponsors. We don't.
It's more like
But we just feel like
sponsor pitch.
if we pretend we have sponsors and
It makes it sound more legit.
yeah, and maybe they'll listen and actually sponsor us. Patch, Gabby is oh my god, if you could see how big Gabby is right now, god. She's like a fucking teenager now in plant years. It's crazy, she's huge. And Alice's plants are also doing great. You didn't send me a new pot for Gabby, so I've had to use a different one.
I'd also like a large pot for Kevin, please.
Yeah.
Kev.
I've also for my birthday I got Barley, and she is beautiful.
You haven't sent me a picture of Barley in real life.
Barley.
That's what you said.
Wait, hang on. Oh my god, I just realised something about our accents. So, because it's Barley, like the place. Her name is Barley, like the place.
Like
Not-
Bali.
Yeah, not barley like the grain.
But you
Because you said it like the grain.
it sounded like you said barley.
Yeah, because it's the same. Barley and barley.
Exactly. That's not. It's barley and Bali.
That's why when you said it, I stopped
you're
for a second
saying
because
it
I was
wrong.
like, no, not the grain.
But it's funny how you know in my accent that's not right.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's funny that you know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you said it and I was like, no, she's talking about the grain.
No, it's Bali.
Yeah.
Bali.
Anyway.
Bali, Bali, Bali.
Bye. Oh, wait, hang on. Where's that cake from?
That was a bit alarming.
Oh,
No.
we've never mentioned co-op before.
There was, we wanted also Crosstown to sponsor us.
Oh, yeah.
Don't forget that. Crosstown and Patch.
And Sainsbury's.
They're not going to sponsor us.
No.
Ever.
What, because Crosstown and Patch are?
We've more chances with them because they're like slightly smaller businesses than Sainsbury's.
I don't think Patch and Crosstown count as small businesses anymore.
No, but they're smaller than
Okay.
Sainsbury's.
Okay. Bye.
Am I right?
Bye, bye,
Am
bye,
I,
bye.
am I right?
Yeah. Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye. Bye.
Maybe you should say bye.